Hello and welcome to this week's video where we're going to be talking about tax returns. So it is the beginning of September and you do have until the end of October to finalise any self-submitted tax returns. You do have longer if you do use an accountant and you are registered with them before the end of October. But what I found with people when it comes to tax returns is they basically just get really overwhelmed with the whole concept of a tax return. There's so much information to collect, there's so much to do, it's really important, and it just becomes overwhelming. So what I wanted to do was just to try to break down what you need to do in a tax return into some simpler steps where you can kind of focus on one thing at a time, which I find really helps to overcome any overwhelm, because a single task will have you on the right path to doing your tax return. So the first thing is to collect your income information. So if you have been employed, go straight and get your payment summaries. These are often now filled in automatically on the e-tax. So I will be talking specifically about self-completed tax returns, but it is good to check it because it's reliant on somebody having entered the information correctly on your paper summary and on your ATO. So it's good to have them to check, and it's generally quite easy unless you've had lots of jobs, and then you will need to get them all. So the second thing I suggest is to collect a list or to make a list of all the places that you've earned income. So if you have Etsy shop, your own web shop, made it. If you're using payment processors, collect information from those too. So if you've got Square, PayPal, Stripe, anything that's come directly into your bank account, collect all the places where you earn income and when money comes into you, and make a list and just go through one at a time and get a total that you've earned on that platform. It honestly is one of the best ways just to break it down and make it really easy. So rather than trying to collect everything all at once, just go one platform, one income number. So you can go to your Etsy, you can get your Etsy information for the year, and then you can tick that off as done. So do it conclusively and do it well, and then you'll not have to go back and revisit that again to check it. Then the thing we have to do is check where we're receiving income from. So if we have a web shop, for example, and we're processing those sales through PayPal, we have to be sure we're only counting that income a single time. So we only want to count it once, because if we add what came in from the web shop to what came in from PayPal, we're going to end up with the wrong income number. So once you have that list of places you've earned money and where that's being processed, you have to make sure that you are only counting them once. Now, often that actually is using the information from your payment processor, because that's where things are going through. If you have done any cash transactions, you need to obviously make sure you're capturing those. And if you have direct payments into your bank account, make sure you're capturing those. So that's income. So then obviously we're going to then next look at expenses. So the first thing I actually do is go back to that list of income, where money's being received, and grab the fees from each of those. So you can go to Etsy, you can get the fees from Etsy, and that's much simpler than it sounds with Etsy these days. Go to PayPal, collect your fees from PayPal. Do it that way. So you're just looking at that one income source and the direct fees you paid in that income source or that payment processor. Then when you've managed to do that, go and grab your paper receipts and get those together and keep them together. Then grab your electronic records. So if you have email receipts and if you've paid for anything via PayPal, grab all of those together as well. And then just like we looked at income, we need to be sure that we're only capturing expenses once. So if we had paid for something through PayPal, we may have an invoice from the supplier, we probably have a receipt from PayPal, and if PayPal's linked to your bank account, you may actually have the money leaving your bank account as well. So we just want to make sure we're capturing each of these transactions just once, and generally that's the supplier's invoice is the best record, but you also need to cross-check what you actually paid from your bank account, particularly if it's a foreign currency and something additional did go through. So grab those and then check we're just recording everything just one time. So make sure you're removing any duplicates from your records. Then with expenses, it does get a little bit more complicated because maybe you have non-cash transactions. So if you have things like depreciation, home office expenses where you're claiming a particular percentage, or you're claiming a cents per hour method, or cents per hour, cents per hour method, or if you have mileage where you've used your own personal vehicle for business, all those kind of are non-cash, so it's a little bit harder to have a receipt, but you need to do work, go and then work those out. And anything for which you didn't have a receipt, so if you purchase something second hand, or off, say, like Gumtree, something like that, and there's not a receipt, but you definitely remember you purchased it, make sure you record those as well. And then the last step in expenses is to check if you've used anything personal for business. So stuff like if you've been to a market and you've been using Square or PayPal, you've been using data on your personal mobile plan, you can allocate or apportion some of those expenses into your business on a reasonable basis generally. That's expenses. So there are a few steps in expenses. Again, just break it down so you have just a few and you're not trying to do everything and you're not trying to do it all at once. The last step then that we tend to look at is owner's equity, which is what I own in my business. So I made an investment in my business, probably to buy equipment and supplies when I first got started, and that the business really owes that back to me because I am separate from the business, and that's the easiest way to think about your business. So you want to check, did you pay for any expenses with your personal money that haven't been repaid by the business? So if I use my personal credit card to purchase some supplies and the business didn't reimburse me for those, I can either reimburse them, but now we're out of the financial year, you're probably going to record them as an investment. And then secondly, did I transfer any cash from the business to me, or did I purchase anything within the business that was actually personal? Because we're going to want to record those as drawings. So anytime I pay myself from my business as a sole trader, it's actually a drawing. It's not a wage, which is something we have discussed before. So just checking for changes I call in owner's equity. Then obviously we're going to need to bring this all together at some point. So if you use a spreadsheet, if you do it on paper, if you use bookkeeping software, whatever it is, you're going to need to bring all those records together to be able to work out your tax return. Now I will say a spreadsheet as a minimum will save you a lot of time with the calculator. So I do recommend minimum spreadsheet. But if you're going to be overwhelmed looking for an accounting software as well as doing this, then don't do it. Keep it simple, make it as easy as possible, because you're much more likely to get it done the easier it is for you. Then before we kind of wrap this up and you go ahead and submit your tax return, I just want to say, if you are unsure at all, please seek help if you need it. So whether that's a bookkeeper, a tax agent, an accountant, whatever kind of help you need, do reach out to somebody, because they can save you a lot of money and a lot of stress. You don't want to be getting things wrong. It is important to get this right. And then, once you've done that and you've submitted it, I'm going to say start as you mean to go on. So avoid this overwhelm next year. Now, start now. Maybe that's getting a system. Maybe that's just dealing with paper receipts now, because you've got this huge shoebox full of paper receipts and you'll want to avoid that in future. So just think about, what have you done during this process that would actually make your life easier going forward. Now, I have produced a checklist for this for a quick rundown. There is some more information as well on the blog, so I will link to those in the description, and I'll see you here sometime next week.